So BlizzCon happened. That was a thing. And I honestly didn't think that I would be covering it because of my recent viewpoints towards Blizzard, but hey, here we are. Welcome to the GNRO Minicast. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drak. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening or watching this. And today I am doing something that I didn't think I'd be doing. A lot of people know my viewpoints on recent decisions with Blizzard Entertainment, especially with the merger with Microsoft. I'm still not really on board with it, but it's going to go through. And so at one point this year, I really didn't think BlizzCon was in the cards for me. And turns out I was very wrong. The best way to do it is just the simplest way. I was wrong. And so I am going to be doing a GNRO Minicast this week, covering all of the announcements at BlizzCon 2023. I'm gonna go ahead and be honest with you guys. I did not watch all of them. There were definitely a lot of games I just don't give a crap about, and I'm probably gonna try and get those out of the way right off the bat. But overall, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts overall on BlizzCon 2023, because it actually turned out to be, much like a lot of stuff with Blizzard this year for me, a pleasant surprise. And of course, the article that we're getting today is from MMOchampion.com. No banding in the comics or anything like that. I figure that I can go to a better source that actually did in-depth coverage because, like I said, I didn't have a virtual ticket. I watched some of these panels after they came out on YouTube, which, by the way, that was a way better idea, Blizzard, to do, is instead of making people pay for an exorbitant virtual ticket that doesn't really work all that well, instead, they really didn't put anything on it, like amount or anything of that sort, and instead just said, okay, well, as soon as this comes out, then you get to watch it on YouTube right off the bat. Good idea, as far as I'm concerned. This is going to be one of those good ideas from this year's BlizzCon. Let's go ahead and go into the one that I absolutely watched nothing about, which is Overwatch 2. I'm sorry, Overwatch 1.5. I'm pretty sure Uncle Phil is going to be caring about this franchise. Too bad I don't. So I'm just going to go ahead and be honest with people. I didn't watch any of these panels. I wasn't really all that interested, but I'm just going to go ahead and quickly go over some of the things that were announced and giving my thoughts as to whether or not the Overwatch fans would appreciate it. So there's a new tank hero in Mauga. I think is his name, Mauga. So you get him. He, I guess, runs off of double railguns, so that's cool. He also gets to trap enemies in a cage fight. That's an interesting ability. There's going to be a new PvP game mode in Clash, so teams fight for 5 points back and forth. The first Clash map is going to be a remake of Hanamura called Hanaoka. And I guess according to the What's Next panel, this is literally like the street next to Hanamura. So not really a whole lot of changes. It's Hanamura remastered, I guess, but now it's Hanaoka. We also did get the announcement that there will be 3 more heroes coming in 2024, 2 of which were announced, but I don't think... I think one of them was given a name in the fact that it's a damage hero by the name of Venture. The new support hero is going to be a Space Ranger, but right now it just says that it has a code name, so my guess is there isn't a name for this yet, and the third hero wasn't even shown. So, because I'm assuming this doesn't include Mauga. Mauga. I could see a bunch of people making a bunch of Trump jokes with that character. So yeah, including the What's Next panel, they went in a little bit more depth with the Clash game mode. They also showed that placements will be returning in Season 9, as well as rank resets. There will be a new rank called Ultimate, which will be added above Grandmaster. And the new support hero, Space Ranger, is coming in Season 12. She is from the Mars colony and highly mobile and vertical gameplay. So I have a feeling it's going to be one of those interesting characters that people are going to want to pay attention to. As far as Venture is concerned, what we know so far is that they can drill under the ground, they can dash, they can shoot projectiles, and travel a set distance before exploding. So my thoughts on this, I mean, if you're an Overwatch fan, there really isn't a whole lot to offer in Overwatch aside from maps and heroes. And it sounds to me, and also game modes. And it sounds to me like you've got quite a bit to be able to look forward to. Good on you. I haven't played Overwatch for quite a long time. I didn't even touch 2, because as far as I'm concerned, Overwatch 2 is Overwatch 1.5. There really isn't a whole lot of changes. The next one that I think was also kind of weak in terms of announcements, and yes, I am saying Overwatch was weak just because really the only people that were interested as far as I'm concerned is the people like Uncle Phil, the Xbox demographic. So if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that's an opinion. The next one that I think was fairly weak was Hearthstone, in the fact that they did announce additional details to their new expansion, Showdown in the Badlands. They did actually announce a cool feature that's being put into the game called catch-up packs, which basically are going to look at the last 5 expansions, and you will be able to get upwards, I think it was like 50 cards per pack that you can get. And that to me is actually a really cool thing, considering that when I did play Hearthstone, I was never caught up with, like, I did the solo adventures and I tried to collect some of the packs and it just never really worked out. And so these catch-up packs really work out, especially for somebody like me who wants to go and experience maybe some of the other adventure modes, and I don't have all of those cards. So this is definitely something that I think a lot of people are going to look into. I think that pretty much everybody is going to get catch-up packs, but if you had the BlizzCon bundle, or if you got the BlizzCon bundle via Hearthstone store, then you would be able to get more. You would also have a new card from Showdown in the Badlands called Excavate, or new keyword rather for cards called Excavate, which will allow you to get to give you a treasure when played. And each time you excavate, you get a treasure from the tier that you're on, and then you progress to the next tier. So there you go. That'll be interesting for Hearthstone players. There will also be a duos mode that will be added to, I think it's just the Battlegrounds, and that will be coming out around 2024, so you guys can look forward to that. And what they did show of it was pretty cool. Basically, it's a 2-on-1 against the Tavern Master or the Battleground Master, and you can actually like share cards via a portal. You can see what your partner is doing when it's not your turn, etc. So that actually is kind of a cool concept. Up next, that I think was pretty weak, and I think primarily this can be considered to be weak, is Diablo 4. Especially considering Diablo 4 has not had a good year so far. I think it had a fairly good launch, but then a lot of people that I know of that are playing it, spoiler, I'm not playing it. I had other things to pay for. So at that point, the people who have told me this is that a lot of features were basically added in that were very grindy, and that's why eventually we got a Blizzard video of the Diablo team apologizing for that and basically backtracking a lot of those announcements. And unfortunately, where they probably needed something to get people going, they really didn't have a whole lot to announce here, and that's why I'm saying it's kind of weak in the fact that they did announce the next expansion, which is going to be Vessel of Hatred. This is going to be a campaign focusing on the fate of Mephisto, who is the Lord of Hatred. It will be coming in late 2024, and it will be, I believe, returning to the Torajan jungle. It was a jungle area that Mephisto was in 2, so at that point I think it's the same place. We also did hear that there is going to be a new class, but no information for it. So we know that it's going to be never before seen in Diablo, but they didn't have even any concepts to be able to showcase, so I feel like some people kind of got jilted out of that. The Malignant Rings will be coming next week, so you guys can look forward to that. And then in December 5th, you will be getting an Enchanting preview with the coming to the Occultist. You also will have the Abattoir of Zir, a new activity for level 100 players. And on December 12th, you're going to get a Midwinter Blight holiday event for 3 weeks. That's interesting. Is this going to be like a dark take on Christmas? And then the Season 3 announcement was the Gauntlet Leaderboard. Now, one thing that was cool and was explained in the campfire chat that Diablo 4 got, new players will be able to play the main campaign with a recap or be able to dive right into the new expansion. So if you want to do that, you can. This to me is very similar to Reaper of Souls, when they announced that if you were brand spanking new, I believe you had to go through the campaign, at least a portion of the campaign, and then you got access to adventure mode, or maybe you got access right off the bat. But you got the choice. You didn't have to run the campaign endlessly. You had the adventure mode to be able to get into. And in my opinion, adventure mode is probably one of the better things that were added in Diablo 3 and ultimately into World of Warcraft. So that's kind of funny. They also did say that the new class will be unique to Diablo 4, and it is never seen in the franchise. So that'll get the theory crafting going to see what this actually might be. And that's interesting, considering that I believe in this one, it was all returning classes, because we got the Druid, we got the Barbarian, we got the Rogue, we got the Sorcerer, I believe, came back, and then also the Necromancer, and then that's it. So that'll be interesting, considering that Diablo 3 had the Monk, the Demon Hunter, those were brand new classes, the Witch Doctor was a brand new class, and technically these count in my opinion, but we can hash that out if you want. The Wizard and the Crusader, even though they are basically different versions of the Sorcerer and the Paladin. I would say that they're different, and so at that point they can be considered a new class. Are they brand spanking new? Probably not. But overall, Diablo 4 fans, you didn't really get a whole lot. You got the Vessel of Hatred. You're going to get some more information later on. I think they did confirm that later on. But we obviously didn't get to see the new class, and that might have been something for people to talk about. Instead, we get to look forward to the jungle and going back and doing some more lore with Mephisto. So hopefully you guys are excited. I'm at least excited that they did confirm that Diablo 4 is going to Steam, as well as that it is workable on the Steam Deck. So I might actually play that way instead of Battle.net, because I would probably enjoy it a lot more. And so then at that point, maybe I can give my thoughts later on what I think about Diablo 4. Sorry guys, I'm having to do a last-minute edit to this video because I don't know how I did this, but I completely forgot to mention there was another game that was covered at BlizzCon 2023, and that was Warcraft Rumble. So it's kind of dumb to not mention it because it literally came out that day. The day of the opening ceremony is when Rumble was launched on the app stores, and so at that point, I do actually need to address it. Overall, I gotta say, when I first saw the trailer for Warcraft Arclight Rumble, which is what it was called, I wasn't really all that interested. It looked kind of hokey, and I saw a lot of people in my guild chat and other places saying that it's basically just a Clash of Clans clone, and I had played a little bit of Clash. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, so I kind of wrote it off when that trailer happened. When it came out and the fact of and other announcements that we're about to get into happened, I decided, why not? Let's give Warcraft Rumble a try. And I've been pleasantly surprised with it. It's actually been a lot more engaging than I thought it would be. And so I do think that this is also one of those points where we do actually need to address it, because as you guys are going to see in a minute, one of the things that BlizzCon was being called was WoWCon 2023, and part of it was because of all of the Warcraft news. So we actually did get to have a panel in regards to the future of Warcraft Rumble, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this for the record. Tom Chilton, who is the former WoW game director before Ian Hazzikostas, he is the game director for Rumble, and holy crap, man, eat a burger. Just eat a burger. I don't know what's going on. He looks very unhealthy. I know that that's a dumb observation, but I'm just going to throw it out there. He went through the details that we are looking forward to expecting very soon, including the concept for dungeons are already in the game, but he's basically going to try and add in raids and also additional minis and other things like that. But the biggest focus was the raids and the fact that there's going to be wings to the raid, and it'll all just lead up to Ragnaros. He also explained a little bit of the Sylvanas deal that was happening this month, is that the Sylvanas Leader, I think that's what they're called, the Leader mini for Sylvanas is going to be available for those who actually get her in the, I believe it's the raid caches that your guilds can do. And so that was actually kind of cool, because I've been messing around a lot with the Scourge. I actually liked messing around with the Scourge in Warcraft 3. And Baron Rivendare is a cool leader for it, but I tend to like ranged leaders in some cases. And I actually wonder, given the Scourge aesthetic with a lot of those minis, if Sylvanas wouldn't be a better fit for them instead of going with Baron Rivendare. So overall, I think that Rumble is off to a fairly good start, but I guess we'll have to see once we get the raid in our hands, which is going to be obviously Molten Core. Once we get Molten Core in our hands, and then we get to see like what is going to be the overall direction for Rumble, I would be very interested to see what's going to happen there. I'm also going to go ahead and mention this because I've had this discussion with a few people. I am kind of sad that it's called Warcraft Rumble instead of just plain Rumble or Arclight Rumble. Because I'm going to put it out here. I know some people are going to get mad about it. But as I've been playing it, I've been literally thinking to myself, you know, if they added Protoss minis, I don't think I'd object to having them in the Warcraft universe and dealing with other things. Or if they added a demon set of minis that their leader was Diablo. I don't know if I'd be mad about it. It's one of those cases where I think this could be a Heroes of the Storm type situation where you could have easily just called it Arclight Rumble or just plain Rumble. Maybe not just plain Rumble, there is a website. But you kind of get what I mean, where it could have easily been a Heroes of the Storm situation and you could add a bunch of other minis on top of that. And we could, I know that their justification is that this, the Warcraft Rumble machine exists in the basement of the Hearthstone Tavern, but I could easily see them re-justifying it and saying the machine went into the Nexus, and we could easily get that, but that's just me. But anyway, back to the original video. Now let's get into the meat of this. There's a reason that this was called WoWCon 2023, because a lot of the major announcements were based around World of Warcraft. So at that point, there's one thing I want to make sure to get into before we get into the real meat here, and that is the WoW Classic announcements that they had. First of all, you have WoW Cataclysm Classic is officially going to be coming. Sorry for the laugh, but I'm just going to be honest with people. I called this way back when and had a bunch of people telling me I was full of shit. And guess who's winning on this one? If you're brand spanking new to the channel, you might want to get used to the video that's about to play.
Because I f***ing called it!
Because I'm going to be using it a lot. So we got that, but that's not really the interesting part. You get to go back to Cataclysm if you want, but I believe they're going to keep the Wrath servers going. So at that point, you're at least good there. Although for some reason, the BC servers aren't there anymore, and I like to... If somebody can answer me why they cut those off, I have seen multiple kinds of answers online, and all of them I think are kind of PR-ish. So if you guys can give me if you guys know a legitimate answer why BC Classic servers were taken down, I'd love to know personally. Because I just find it funny that, oh, we were supposed to have Classic servers and BC servers and Wrath servers and Cataclysm servers, and now it sounds to me like they're limited on servers and they can only have so many things going at a particular time. Which a lot of people are not going to like me saying this, but I think it's a good idea. So with Cataclysm, that was a cool concept. But that's not the interesting thing we got from Classic. They also announced the Season of Discovery. And this is very interesting. So this is going to be, I believe, just vanilla WoW. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they did something later on where you could do this in BC. I don't know. They'll figure it out, obviously. But it's very intriguing how they're going to go about it. For those who are WoW players who have been around for a while, you might understand when I say the term twinking. Originally in Classic WoW and in some of the expansions, I think it still goes on, there is a concept in PvP called twinking, where you basically make sure that you can't level past a certain point, in some cases like level 19, level 29, and you stay in that PvP bracket, and you can just play in that PvP bracket with this character from here on in. And so at that point, it's a very interesting concept because of the limited abilities, and you have to make do with the gear that you can actually get. I know lots of people that enjoyed doing twink PvP. I was not big into that. I did like the I did have more interest in that than like endgame PvP, but not by much. And that's what the Season of Discovery kind of sounds like it's going to be. It's going to be twinking, but for PvE players. Instead, the emphasis is going to be discovery. You're going to be discovering things around the world that in turn will have rewards for your class. They're actually going to let you customize your class in specific abilities from things that you discover out in the world. That's actually kind of cool. You would be able to get abilities like, for example, Paladins in Classic didn't really have a taunt. Now you can get basically a glyph, or I don't remember what they call it. It's basically enchanting a piece of your armor to give you, as a Paladin, Hand of Reckoning, the Paladin taunt that came later. They didn't even stop there. They also added things like mages being able to possibly heal, tanking warlocks, tanking shamans. Like, all of these can happen now because the cap is set at 25. So at that point, we don't really have to worry about endgame balance or anything like that. And I thought that was actually a really great idea. Another great idea that is being put on this, additionally, is the fact that they are actually going to be adding in a 10-man raid in Season of Discovery. They are basically going to retool Black Fathom Deeps, a level 10 dungeon, if people don't know. It's like a 10 to 20 dungeon, and they're going to remake it into a 10-man raid and increase the difficulty and make it so that a 10-man raid can go into Black Fathom Deeps, get cool rewards, be able to discover some cool things, and just be able to have an overall good time. And I actually like this idea very much, because this basically reminds me when I started in the game, how people just randomly out of nowhere would do raids in the Dead Mines. Or they would do, they would all raid Hogger at, like, you couldn't be past like level 5 or something like that. And sometimes there would be like, you could only be a gnome. So you could only have this race, but whatever class you want in that. And we'll get you here and then we can all raid Hogger. That's what this reminds me of. And those are fun activities. I participated in a few of them. And they're fun because they're silly, because there's no skill requirement, so to speak. It's very casual. And I think a lot of what you're going to hear from me in the WoW end is casual, and it actually is working. And so I actually might dig out Classic and try out the Season of Discovery. I've been very much thinking about it, especially when they basically hinted that we were going to be getting even more of these 10-man raid content, and some of them would be based on content that was never released to the public. In fact, one of the things that was teased on the stage was something based around the Karazhan crypts. And for those who don't know, the Karazhan crypts were cut off from players. People were able to sneak their way in and be able to see some of the development that they were working on. But after that, it was removed from the game. You couldn't get in there anymore. And especially when the old world was removed with Cataclysm, they just got rid of it. And a lot of the stuff in there was super creepy. And so the fact that they're actually going to go in there and they're going to finish it, and it's going to be in the 2004 kind of graphic style, I am very interested in this. I would love to see the lore that kind of comes out of it. So that's Classic. What are they doing in retail World of Warcraft? Well, a lot. I'm not going to go over all of it because I know for a fact myself and Rising Sun, if you guys have already heard this podcast and it's up, great. If not, it'll be there. Me and Rising Sun actually went over our opinions before BlizzCon about Dragonflight and the fact that it has actually been a pleasant surprise of an expansion. It's actually been very engaging. It's been fun to be able to I basically came back and I played Dragonflight and I've been enjoying a lot of it. So much so that I actually decided to start doing questing with Drak and doing it with the Dragonflight campaign to see if they're actually improving on the bad storytelling that existed in both BFA as well as Shadowlands. So I will go over those in a lot more detail there, but here we'll just kind of do a quick summation. We didn't just get a brand new expansion. We got the next 3 expansions announced. Because now we're going to go into the World Soul Saga, as Chris Metzen put it, who is now basically going to be an advisor on this. And I think that was actually a good idea because it sounds to me like he's going to be advising on a lot of this stuff. And so with the World Soul Saga, we're going to get 3 expansions within it. The first one that's going to be coming out very soon is called The War Within. The whole premise of this is that we're going to delve into the heart of Azeroth itself. And with that, I mean, we're going to go underground and we're going to get to experience a bunch of, it's going to be like Journey to the Center of the Earth, but WoW style, where we can see different kind of biomes existing underneath the planet. And with that, we will also be able to engage in the outpost at Kaz Algar, which is one of the things that got teased as a possible expansion. And we'll be interacting with the Earthen that are there, who have actually kind of gained their own little caste system while there. And also we will be interacting with the Nerubians. And for those who have followed the channel for quite a bit, I love Nerubian lore. And I was actually pleasantly surprised here because it's going to be evolved Nerubians. It's not necessarily just going to be spider people. We are going to get evolved humanoid type Nerubians who are equally just as creepy. That expansion is set for 2024. If I was going to guess, given what they showcased, it's probably at minimum going to be fall 2024 and at most early 2025. Because it sounds to me like they're pretty far along in it. They've been able to get the zones up and running. We actually got really good looks at those zones, so I know that that stuff's done. They've also worked out a lot of the class balance and things like that, so I'm very optimistic in the fact that I think this expansion is going to be coming out like fall. If it comes out earlier than that, I would be pleasantly surprised, but I kind of doubt it. The second expansion is going to be called Midnight, and this one's interesting because we will be returning to the Elven lands of Quel'Thalas. I'm hoping that when they say this, they mean it's going to be expanded upon, because even Blizzard has admitted the Eversong Woods and Ghostlands that we got aren't entirely all of it, because that land is supposed to be a lot bigger. And so at that point, maybe we'll actually get more Elven territory, but more importantly, this is basically going to be bringing BC servers somewhat into modern WoW, so that they don't look like they're from 2007 anymore. So I'm actually very excited about this. In this expansion, we will be making a stand with the forces of the light to banish the shadow of the void from Azeroth. So this is going to be a void-based expansion. However, War Within will be building up into this, so technically it will also have void ties. And then finally, we will have the Last Titan, which is going to be witnessing the return of the Titans to Azeroth at Ulduar in Northrend, and because of that, we are going to get a Northrend revamp. So that's why I think with Quel'Thalas, we're going to be getting kind of a BC revamp. Now, the reason I think that is because of this, because they're going to revamp Northrend for the events of The Last Titan. So, we don't know much for those two, Midnight and The Last Titan. They kept pretty silent on that. But here's what we do know about the War Within. Obviously, the new content is going to be Kaz Algar. It's going to literally be 4 zones stacked on top of each other. The deeper you go into new areas. The ending area is going to be Aj-Kahet, which is going to be a major city of the Nerubian Empire, and also is going to be basically the Ice Crown of this expansion, because we will be dealing a lot with our new villain, Xal'atath. Yes, the priest artifact weapon, or at least the soul within the dagger, is now going to be a legitimate villain, and we're going to be dealing with her. That's very cool. I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with it, especially now that we know that apparently Xal'atath is helping the Nerubians to evolve, and also they are helping her to collect the black blood of the old gods. Uh-oh. Because that's always just such a good idea. With this, so I can't remember all of the zones' names, but basically we're going to have a surface area, which is going to be the capital city, that will go down into the Ringing Deeps, or the Isle of Dor is the top zone. Then we'll get the Ringing Deeps, which is kind of their farming area. Then we get, I want to say it's called Hallowlight, which is going to actually incorporate Arathi humans. So these are ancient humans of the first empire of humans. And apparently they somehow ended up in Hallowlight and have been surviving there for many, many years. And then eventually you'll make your way down to Aj-Kahet. And anything with Nerubian lore actually very much has me interested. There will be 8 new dungeons for leveling and for cap. There will also be an 8-boss raid that will be Nerubian based. But the more interesting aspect here is all of what comes next. First of all, we're going to have delves. These are outdoor world experiences that can scale from solo to up to 5 players. and be what they're calling role agnostic. So basically like scenarios in Pandaria, or another better example would be like the horrific visions from BFA, or Torghast from Shadowlands. It's going to be something similar to that kind of gameplay. And so I'm very excited about this because you can basically go on your own and you're not going to be held back, or you can bring a friend and just mess around. It's totally up to you. And more importantly, they're going to be adding delves into the Great Vault in War Within, so that you can gain rewards from that. In fact, the Great Vault is basically becoming the super PvE way to be able to gear and be able to progress in the game. And so I'm very happy about that. Warbands are basically going to be your account. What they're doing in this one is amazing, and they should have done it years ago. They're going to start making things account-wide for your warband. And I love that concept because one of the things they obviously announced was account-wide rep and renown. Obviously, they have to start with the renown system because it's more current code, but they eventually want to make all of your older reps all account-bound. And this is something that people have been screaming for a decade. And frankly, should have happened earlier than this, but at least we're getting it now. Also, you will be able to get warband items that you can then send over to your character. So like if you get the best example they gave us is if you get like a mace that your main character can't use, but maybe your rogue could, you would then be able to have it be warband bound, and you could send it, and it would be a somewhat less item level, but you'd be able to send it to your rogue, and once they hit cap, they could use it. It's very simple to the catch-up mechanics that we have in Dragonflight right now, except instead of having to roll for the weapon or roll for the chest item or roll for the stats, this is a solid item that you can then send over to your rogue and say, hey, this is going to help out with your combat or your outlaw spec. Also, Transmog is officially going to be unlocked for farming. So if I'm farming Transmog on my druid and I get a plate piece, I can pick it up and it gets added to my collection. This is something that has been sorely needed for Transmog farmers such as myself. I'm so happy that they're going to add this, but now we get to get into the cool part, the endgame progression system. So they're not going to be adding talents to the existing trees as they happen. Instead, we're going to be getting what are called hero talents. This is going to be a smaller section of the talent tree that will actually be able to help fuse your class with something else. So if people remember back in the old vanilla days where if you got through your, we'll use warriors for an example. If you got all the way through the protection tree and you still had 10 points left over, you could then spend them in other specs to be able to help yourself out. That's what's happening here roughly, except with each fusion of the specs that you're making, you will get a unique type of spec that you now can have, and they're basically merged within the specs. So for example, with Guardian Druids, if you want to be able to merge a little bit with balance, you would become a Guardian of Elune, that in turn you would be able to incorporate a lot more arcane damage into your bear-based abilities. I love this because of all of the things that can come from it. For example, some of the specs that they were showing that I'm putting up on the screen obviously right now, one of the specs for mage is Frostfire. I loved when Frostfire mages were a thing back in Wrath of the Lich King. I'm glad that this is one of them. Even some of the Death Knight specs are very interesting. Being able to be a Sand Lane, that's an interesting take. I'm guessing that's probably going to be Blood and Unholy or something like that. The Druid ones were also very interesting. The Warriors, I am so excited for all of these that I will probably roll a bunch of new alts just so I can experience all of them. And on top of that, we are going to be getting some other major changes. First of all, we're going to be getting a new allied race, which is the Earthen, and it's the Earthen based on the Isle of Dor. So you're going to be able to have, these are basically dwarves, but are slightly bigger, and they will be the first neutral allied race. So once you make one, you make the choice. Is it Alliance or Horde? And then that's the way it goes. So now I'm probably sure we're going to be seeing a massive insurge of dwarves over on the Horde side, and it's not really going to change that much for the Alliance, but it does make things very interesting for the next two expansions if they want to add allied races onto that one, because I have a feeling that all the people who have been screaming for high elves on the Alliance, you might get your wish in Midnight. I'm very interested to see if that actually happens. So one of the other big things they did in Dragonflight that I think was actually a really great thing to do is they added all they basically dissolved the barriers between Alliance and Horde when it came to cross-faction guilds, cross-faction dungeons, cross-faction raids, all of that stuff. Here, they are basically going to be doing a lot of cross-realm. So you'll be able to have cross-realm guilds. You'll be able to have cross-realm mythics available in War Within. So even more being able to play with your friends. This is cool to me, especially considering that my buddy Rising Sun is on a different server, on a different faction, and now Blizzard's basically saying, yeah, we want you to be able to play with him. Why not? So I'm very happy about that. But then we get all of the cool account-bound stuff. So account-wide rep, account-wide renown, account-wide flight paths, account-wide bank, so that you would be able, and also reagent bank, so you'd be able to store all of your profession necessary items. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're not on your jewel crafter and you want to make a jewel, you can do it via your warband. I love that concept. A lot of amazing things are going to be added. Now, the one thing that is disappointing, I will say, is that they did confirm that there is no 10.3, but we would be getting a 10.2.5 that is going to be happening. So I'm hoping that maybe in 10.2.5 we would get basically a best of patch where we start having some of the things that were added in the last season of Shadowlands, where we got the faded raids and being able to go and get specific items with a currency, basically allowing you to best in slot and optimize the heck out of your character before the next expansion comes. I think all of that is a good idea, and hopefully that will happen in 10.2.5, even though we're not going to be getting 10.3. Oh, and PvP fans, rejoice, you will also be getting a brand new battleground. We did not get the details of what it's going to be called or anything like that, but we do know that it's going to be very much like Silver Shard Mines. And now I'm thinking, with all of the account-bound focus and everything like that, this actually is going to benefit PvPers, because then at that point they don't have to worry too much about balancing. They can instead put forth some effort and get you guys some new arenas, some new battlegrounds, and PvP can actually start having stuff, whereas most expansions you guys don't get anything. So all of this is going to be working out very well for you. Obviously, they did also announce the various editions of War Within, and allowed for people to pre-order it. So once this weekend kind of got kicked in, I got to see a bunch of Algarian Storm Riders out there that will be running with dynamic flying. And yes, that's actually another thing, is that basically 75% of all mounts in the game are now going to incorporate dynamic flying. So if you don't want to just fly on your dragon, you can now take that Phoenix mount you got from Kael'thas way back when and do dynamic flying with it. That actually was a really great idea. I think that that's going to be amazing come War Within. That's all the major announcements for BlizzCon 2023. So my overall thoughts are, this was a pleasant surprise. Now, it was a pleasant surprise for WoW fans, not necessarily for everybody else. Diablo 4, you got an expansion, so you know something's coming, but you didn't really get a whole lot of information. Hearthstone, you already had some stuff coming anyway, and so they just added on to things that they're adding into that expansion. Overwatch, you got a hero, you got some maps, you got a new map, you got a new clash mode. So they tried to add things in, but to me, there's a reason that the joke is being made right now that it was WoWCon 2023. And it's not wrong. It was a pleasant surprise. I do think that other people got other things, but the WoW fans were definitely preferred. And I'm not quite sure how Uncle Phil's going to take to that, because I do know that he's going to want to focus on probably both Diablo and Overwatch coming into Xbox at some point, but I guess we'll find out eventually. And yeah, my overall thoughts, it was actually a pretty good BlizzCon. Here's hoping that they can maintain this pace of pleasant surprise. I'm still very skeptical on whether or not they can, but I guess we'll find out in the future. And that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this GNRO Minicast. If you are brand spanking new, make sure to give a like and subscribe on YouTube. It definitely does help us out on the channel. and also helps out with things like the algorithm, so that then we can put more effort into the channel as opposed to, having to do the regular things that we do every day. Maybe we can also be able to do things more regularly. Unfortunately, with the way things are, it's more difficult to be able to do. And I will be back next time for the next GNRO Minicast, so until then, have a good one and take care.